your trip and you're looking for different types of, looking at the pros and cons of different boats and the layouts and the hulls?
When we're first talking about pros and cons, when I think about the salient features in ASL, that makes me think that I'm definitely going to be obviously setting things up in space, but how would the pros and cons, how would I set that up? Am I setting up my pros here, putting my cons there? Those are the things that I'm thinking about right now. As far as how am I setting that up in space, where am I going with my body shiftment, body movement, eye gaze?
I've had a little bit of experience working with a variety of boats, but battle primarily flat water or moving water, those are the two considerations really.
Well, now that we're talking about the main two considerations of what we're talking about as far as this presentation and the scope goes, I'm obviously going to set those up as two different entities, differentiate between the two. And when we're talking about one versus the other, I would obviously do body shifting, facing that area, one versus the other. The other thing that I'm thinking about, water, flat water, running water, what does that look like? How would I differentiate between those two phrases, terms, concepts? How do I portray that in ASL meaning?
You're going to be paddling moving water. One of the best all around resilient boats is made out of Royalex, which is an ABS foam, vinyl, several different layers.
Now we're talking about running water, so obviously I'm over here in this sign space. We're talking about Royalex Brazilian type of canoe, so that's obviously something that I would more than likely fingerspell, if not create a loan sign for it, but I don't think this presentation goes on long enough to have to worry about that. The other thing I would think about is when he's talking about the different layers of ABS, vinyl, and foam. Now, watching him, which is unusual because we don't get to normally see the presenter as they're presenting. We're normally just listening. He set it up, vinyl foam, vinyl foam, vinyl foam. Me thinking to myself, okay, what would that look like in ASL? One option would it be, vinyl foam, vinyl foam, vinyl foam. And then the other thing I'm thinking to myself is, would I need to sign or fingerspell vinyl, foam, vinyl, foam? I don't really know. At this point, I don't know if that particular term would necessarily need to be in the presentation. I don't think it adds any emphasis of meaning. But if he talks about the next canoe and how that's different compared to the first canoe, and how that was vinyl and foam and this canoe is vinyl and aluminum, I don't even know if that makes sense. But my point is that's something that I would be thinking about. The importance of having to fingerspell it or just setting it up there. Hey, there's different type of layers within the boat.
And it's just bomb-proof. You can bounce it off rocks and drop. The drawback is
We talked about a drawback, which is probably one of the cons. Obviously, some sort of extra linguistic, something on the face, or maybe just a shift to say, okay, we're talking about cons here. That's something that I would be thinking about to sort of differentiate the positives from the negatives, but keeping it within that sign space. We're here. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the running water. We're still in this space. I don't want to shift too much because I've already set my flat water up in this area. I'm going to sort of sit back. I think you guys can see. 30% heavier. Is it necessary to do 30%? Can you just go ahead and say it's heavier than the other canoes?
Would be something to consider if you're going to be paddling, doing tripping or moving open water. The two that are most common are fiberglass and Kevlar.
Okay, now we're talking about open water. So I am shifting over to this sign space where I've set up open water, flat water, and within this sign space within this topic area we have subtopic areas, and now we're talking about two different boats. So I think being conscious and mindful to have to set those two boats up as well is important. And when we're talking about one versus the other, make sure we keep those two and we're keeping our body and eye gaze where it needs to be, and we're not shifting to the center too much, nor are we facing our running water.
In a lot of the outfitting situations that you see, if you're going to buy a boat, the drawback is that Kevlar costs about 3 times as much as fiberglass.
Here we go again with the drawbacks. So obviously you want to make sure we're doing those positives and negatives, or pros and cons, however you want to set that up. I think it's imperative that you differentiate, with body motions, eye gaze, however, whatever sailing feature you choose to use, to make sure we're still adding those pros and cons, since that was sort of the beginning where we're going to talk about flat water and running water, but we're also going to talk about the pros and cons of each of these boats or canoes in each of these situations.
It's what they make bulletproof helmets out of. It's really bomber. It's real light. But the drawback is that it is also a little more difficult to repair if you do get a puncture. If the wind blows it off your shoulders, if it's a rock, you have a patch.
This is something that sort of struck me as odd, or something that I not would have struggled with, but not sort of understand the whole cohesiveness of the statement. He talks about how Kevlar is really strong. It's, practically bulletproof, or that's what they use to make bulletproof helmets. But then he talks about how it could easily be punctured by a rock and you can't fix it. So, I don't know. Maybe that's really nothing to think about or nothing to worry about, but that's just something that, has popped into my mind of, okay, I'm going to set it up that it's so strong, but okay, a rock can puncture into it. Even though a bullet, something that's bulletproof, the bullet can still go in it, but it doesn't go through it. So I guess I can understand the concept, but again, is that really necessary to worry about those specifics? Probably not. But I just think, you need to make sure the cohesiveness from the beginning, middle, and end, that it's all sort of making sense. So we're getting the bigger picture.
Fiberglass, very similar characteristics as far as the layout of the hull.
Okay, I believe this is where my other one picks up, so I'm just going to stop right here. I just wanted you guys to be able to see the setup of how I started it and then how I ended, since my computer kept doing some funky things. So just close this one out and then watch the other one. Thank you.